Hello and welcome to Crossing Bridges Talk Show. I'm your host, Larry Montgomery Sr. This is my co-host, William. Introduce yourself.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a new year, and thanks for having us into your homes.
Yes, and so we should say happy holidays and happy new year, and hope that God continues to bless you and yours. This week we're going to have, I guess, part two of our conversation from last week on the Willie Lynch letter. Okay. We were reading from the version as edited by or commented by Frederick Douglass. And I just wanted to, we'll get started on it and we'll see how the conversation goes. There was a note that was made in that what I did not speak on last time. And the note was saying basically, neither principle alone will suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild natural nigger is dangerous even if captured, for they will have the tendency to seek their customary freedom and in doing so might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake and are awake while you are asleep. They are dangerous near the family house, and it requires too much labor to watch them away from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in this natural state. Hence, both the horse and the nigger must be broken. That is, breaking them from one form of mental life to another. Now, clearly, and I stopped reading, this man or those folks at that time who were being, this process was being explained to, clearly understood what he was up against. When you already realize, let's just assume for argument's sake that the black man, the Negro, however you want to call us, was the enemy now because they want to make us do something that was not natural for them. Whether raising crops is natural or not, the fact of surviving and to live a life in peace is something that's natural to most people. Okay, there are some groups and cultures that war was pretty much all they were about, and so it worked for them. But back here in America, where white folks were coming in left and right, wanting to survive, wanted to prosper, were willing to do. Now you got to realize that the people that were coming here, they weren't, let's say, raised to be pioneers. These were people who were pretty much outcasts from Europe. They were not necessarily wanted. First off, they did not want to comply with the laws and rules and regulations over there, so they sought to go someplace where they could just be free and do whatever they want. Hence, the land of the free, America became, so to speak. And it didn't matter to them that when they got here, that it was already occupied, which is interesting. I don't know how you discover something that was already discovered, but we live with that. And so we look even today on how our Native Americans, if you will, or the original Americans, which it should be, are treated as not really citizens. There's always a hurdle in order for you to be even acknowledged, them to be acknowledged, and also us. Because as we talked about being labeled last week, someone labels you and you allow it to stick, then you're stuck with it. However they define that name that they gave you is who you are to them. And, I don't know any labels that have been developed that are good, I mean, there's a reason for it to be whatever it is, and it's not necessarily a good reason. Okay. So the point that was just made in the letter was that it's not natural the way that they have intended, or they were intending to treat blacks. Yeah, we want you to do the work. Yeah. And want you to work, period, 24/7 if possible, and we don't want any problems out of you because we know you will kill us, because that's something that they would probably do if the shoe was on the other foot. I could not imagine being forced to be a slave. I just couldn't imagine it. It's like I can't understand, and I guess a lot of people these days don't accept being incarcerated, because you're forced to do something that is not natural. To sit in a cell for so many hours a day and to be locked in a particular environment with people who you don't know. And we already know that the people in there are supposed to be criminals. So that means they're not necessarily good people. Oh, I'm only a thief. No, I'm not a bad criminal. I'm a white collar criminal. I only write bad checks. Really? Okay. What else are you subject to do? And you don't really find that out until you corner someone in a place where they can't do anything but do what they have to do in order to survive, and being boxed in. And I don't want to talk about incarceration, because that's something that we all need to understand, so we might realize before we do something criminal that this is clearly a consequence of that action. So let's go back to the letter. Now we get into him enumerating some of these processes. Keep the body, take the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. Now, the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. But we said before, there is an art in long-range economic planning. So this is beyond just the individual plantation owners. This is something that they're talking about for the entire nation to do as a people, that this is what we need to do as a people, as white people, to make our economy grow. Number two, you must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. A brief discourse and offspring development will shed light on the key to sound economic principles. So we're going to come back to that in a minute. Number three, pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but concentrate on future generations. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development, and when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you, for her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. And so let me just put a thought there. What he's saying in number three, pay little attention to the ones that you have in front of you right now. Be more concerned with the ones that are going to come afterwards. Because once we start the breaking process with this generation, the female will get the point pretty much. She will be the one who orchestrates the thought processes for the offspring in their earlier years. So as a child, who has the most influence on you? Most likely the mother. And it doesn't matter in what generation you're in, whether it's the 20th century, the 19th century, or the 13th century. The mother would be the one that's more than likely with the child at home, and the father would be the one out, hunting and fishing or whatever, raising crops, to bring the food home. And so she has the greatest impact on you. So what the point of this strategy is to focusing on the mother and the child, once you've destroyed and we'll talk about this, once you've destroyed the man's credibility and shown that he cannot protect his family, then it's natural for the mother to step up and say, well, I got to do what I got to do to protect the child. And so now you put the woman in a place that I'm alone and there's no one to protect me or the child. So I've got to figure out how to survive for my child's sake. Now, she will be the one who has the most opportunity to influence the child to be compliant, okay, to be obedient, not saying that it's going to be something that's going to work 99.9 times out of 100, but it's going to work more often than not. And so let me just come back to you. Did you want to add something or should I continue?
I mean, like I said, this is some powerful stuff that we were talking before the show. And I believe this is some powerful stuff that everybody, regardless of race, religion, whatever, should know what this letter is saying and the implications of it and the impact of it, because that's the only way, we're going to be able to begin to reverse it, because it has to be taught parents, mothers. You know what I'm saying? When you take the male out of the house, what are you doing? You're putting that female in that same situation where they have to fend for themselves, defend themselves, and they're also left to teach their children or child, what they know. And if they know that, well, I can't depend on a man, that's what they're going to teach their children. They're going to teach, well, a son, well, you got to go out there and be, you got to do some sports so you can make some money so you could be wealthy. Don't be a deadbeat like your dad, but, or they'll tell their daughters, yeah, you need to make sure the man got a job, and he you got to squirrel away some money for yourself. You can't, give all yourself to the man because he leaves you at any time. It's like all these different things that men, females, women have been attacked on, force fed over the years, has driven that wedge in our existence here in the States.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind as we go through this letter. Number one is that you have the setting, a plantation, farm, whatever, and the Black people have been brought here in chains. They weren't, riding first class. So they came in chains, and you're bunched in with people who you don't know, who speak different languages. So there was a science to how they brought us here. They had to do it a certain way, otherwise it wouldn't work. There would be a mutiny and I know mutiny is not really the word, but it would be a takeover. Mutiny is amongst the people who working together fall apart, and then they, one tries to take over, whatever. But these are the passengers. This is the cargo getting upset and taking over the ship. Now, if you've never been on a ship, you probably don't understand how it works. So again, you're at the behest of the people who control the ship. And with the person next to you chained to you, and you can't communicate with them, you don't know what they're thinking or what, if they're going, like right now, are you going to go along with what the master is saying, or do you understand what we're in and we need to get out of this type of a thing? And so you're playing one against another here. And so with that, and to take it to the next step with the female, while she has some relationship with a male, whether they're married or engaged or whatever, from where they came from, now they're here, or they just met each other and there's a connection. So now they're here. We are at we're hostages. I'm a hostage, you're a hostage, male, female, whatever. And then you're trying to have a relationship with her because that's a natural thing. And, maybe she gets pregnant. And if she has a baby, what the timing was. So now she's depending on you to protect her because that's how it is. That we all understand that thing. And so and we'll talk about this in the letter here, destroy the man's credibility, put him in a position that he's unable to do what it is that is expected of him, then she has to survive. But at the same time, surviving isn't like an individual thing. You need help somewhere along the line because everything's new. You've never been here before. You don't know where you're at. You can't just walk off and go back home. So now you got to try to figure out, well, how do I keep from getting my head beat in? Or how do I avoid being brutalized by this white man, because no one's here to protect me. So you figure that part out. And at the same time, you have a child that you're trying to protect. So all the pieces are in place from what Willie Lynch is telling them. All we have to do is just manage that. And his point was, it's only going to take you a year to do this, 365 days, because it'll start to work on its own. It'll start the free will. So let me go back to the next point here. Hold on 1 second. Let me get that up. Okay. For example, take the case of the wild stud horse, a female horse and an already infant horse, and compare the breaking process with two captured nigger males in their natural state, a pregnant nigger woman with her infant offspring. Take the stud horse, break him for limited containment, completely break the female horse until she becomes very gentle, whereas you or anybody can ride her in her comfort. Breed the mare and the stud until you have the desired offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train the female horse whereby she will eat out of your hand, and she will in turn train the infant horse to eat out of your hand also. He goes on. When it comes to breaking the uncivilized nigger, use the same process, but vary the degree and step up the pressure so as to be a complete reversal of the mind. Take the meanest and most restless nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, the female, and the nigger infant, tar and feather him, tie each leg to a different horse, faced in opposite directions, set him afire, and beat both horses to pull him apart in front of the remaining niggers. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him, for he will be useful for future breathing. Is that one way to get somebody's attention?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear.
Mm-hmm.
And loneliness. Because now the woman is by herself. He done killed her man in front of her. And he's done beat everybody else in the village damn near to death. So who was she going to at least say, well, if anybody can protect me, it's the boss. Yeah. And when you think about that nowadays, even now in employment, when a black man is going to get a job and has family, you're at a disadvantage because you need a job to support your family. And where the social norm has been that the man would get more money than the woman because the man is responsible for providing the household. When you abuse the man and not allow him to work in his career field or to work at the level that he is qualified for or capable of, he can't make the money that he should make to support his family. So he's probably going to have to get 2 jobs.
Mhm.
And if he's got 2 jobs, where is he not?
At home.
He's not at home. Right.
Mhm.
So you can't protect your family because you're
Yep.
not, you know. And the female, oh, sure, we'll hire her. We'll give her less money. She'll work twice as hard because she needs that money.
Mhm.
And then who's going to watch the children? If the man ain't there because he done made a baby and left, she's the one responsible for it. So now she's got to figure out, well, neighbor, parent, whatever, grandparent, whatever, to watch the kid. And she's got to work. You see, so it's kind of perpetuating this model without writing a new law or anything. This is how we do this. It's just keep in your mind, you don't pay the black man what he's worth, and you encourage a black woman to work for less. And so there's always a financial problem in the household. You talked earlier about, before we came on the show, about ghetto, things like that, and while having a family and an environment, whether it be the village or your hut or your apartment or whatever, if it's a place where you're comfortable and feel safe, that's a good thing. But when people come along and label it, well, you live in the ghetto. What do you mean I live in the ghetto? I live on 3rd Avenue. No, that's the ghetto. Why do you say that? Because now I'm at the point of I'm trying to figure out, what does ghetto mean?
Mhm.
Never heard that word, And so then they explain to you what ghetto means. And they do it gently. Oh, that's where people of the same culture dwell. They have the same circumstances. They may be economically challenged. No, what you really mean is that where poor people who look like each other live. That's what you're saying to me. Okay. It's not my language. I'm relying on your language. And you explained to me when the point that you made earlier, and which made as we go along here, about living in a pigsty. You see, where the master he had to be careful when it came down to talking to his Negroes, his slaves, because he didn't want them to get an understanding of the language that he was using. So if he used the word home, and they're living in the pigsty, and the master's living in the big house on the hill, and he's saying, well, you're home, I'm going home. So now suddenly the Negro's like, well, if where I'm living is home and where you live in is home, why can't I live over there? You see, now you got a problem, okay? Because you allowed the Negro to understand the language, the labels that you used. Okay, but we'll get to that. Was there anything you want to say?
No, you're doing well. I want to get through this letter.
Well, it is kind of long, but I
Yeah.
think the point is that when would we have sat down and talked about this? I mean, just as father and son. We might talk about little bits of it here and there. This situation came up and it reminds me of this, or this came up and I said, oh, well, that's just like such and such or whatever, but not to kind of sit and go through. Did you have something to say? I mean,
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. I was waiting for you to finish your point, but I did have something on what you were talking about earlier A lot of the other things that we subject ourselves to is the desire to want more. They've learned how to capitalize on our desire for better things. So if I live in a substandard lifestyle, like a home that with a leaky ceiling or something like that, or whatever, well, what's going to make me feel better? Getting a better house? Well, if I can distract you by making you pay more money for these nice new silk shirts and gold earrings and Dookie Link chain that we used to have back in the days. Some of us had fake ones, but you getting that image that, oh, I'm better than where I actually live, so I'm good now. It's not, instead of saying, you know what, this ain't where I'm supposed to be, let me save up my change and get me a better place. It's like they got us distracted by these shiny things and want everybody to say, oh yeah, let me get this because if I got this, I'm better than you, even though we live in the same building. Or you ain't crap because you ain't got this new stuff. And it's a like crab in a barrel mindset. Crabs in a barrel. If somebody's trying to get up and get out, they pull them back down. And this is another one of those perpetual situations that we need to learn and get away from, because that money that we spending is going to those same people that's oppressing us. So we making them stronger while we making ourselves weaker with the image that we're doing better, when we're not bettering ourselves, we're bettering them.
Well, you're absolutely correct in there. And it is a cultural thing that we need to overcome. Yes, it's always nice to have something new and whatever, improved or whatever. That's cool. But then you have to understand, well, where's the priority?
Mm-hmm.
If I could tell you that, look, everybody who's born in the year 2021, if we all took on let's just say, a socialistic or communistic attitude, even though we live in America, that we're all in this together as a people, and we all have to work together in order to improve our circumstance. And if we work together for 40 years, and we teach our children to work together during the 40 years, at the end of the 40th year, we would have generated enough wealth to do whatever we want to do whenever we want to do it. Would you buy into it?
Me personally?
Yeah.
The working together and doing stuff together and building, as soon as you label it as socialist or communist, I'm lost, because that you have communities, and some people might confuse communist with communities and stuff like that. Yes, you don't really own anything in a communist society. In a community, you can have your own stuff and share, because that's important. But if somebody mandates that you have to do something, you don't own anything, and then therefore you're working for everybody else. And I think that's where we get lost at. If you're working for yourself, it's important to give. Hey, I'm here, I got extra food, let me feed my brother or my sister, or and that's the community style of living. But when you have somebody above you, or government or something, saying that, oh, well, we're going to take what you got and give it to the next person, it really takes the choice away from you.
And so in my household,
Mm-hmm.
I have children, and I go to work and I buy stuff, buy food, and I put it on the table and everybody eats.
Mm-hmm.
Is that communism or socialism? I'll answer it for you.
Okay.
Same household. Everybody's now over 21. We're all sitting there for dinner. We all buy something for dinner, but we're buying it for the family, not just me personally. And so, no, we're buying personally, but we're all adults in the same household. And then somebody comes home they didn't buy anything. They lost their job. So they don't have anything to put on to eat. And you decide, well, I'll give you some of mine. Is that communism, socialism, or capitalism? I'll answer that for you. In a capitalistic household, it's every dog for himself. You got food or you don't have food. You take somebody's food or they give it to you. You got all the food, you got no food. It is what it is. Now, each one of those strategies at a particular point in time in life would not be a problem. As a baby, communism works for me. As a teenager, socialism could work for me. As an adult, capitalism could work for me, okay? Based on the thinking that we have become accustomed to. But in the reality of it, let's just say there's no dollars. You got to go out and fend for yourself at whatever society you're in. You got to fish for yourself, you got to hunt for yourself, or whatever. If you change the thinking that it's about us surviving, and again, I'm going back to my 40-year point. If we knew that in 40 years, if we work like this together, and in 40 years, we'd be in a position to each and every one of us to do exactly what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it, and be able to provide for our children to do the same thing. Would you work the 40 years in this program? I'll answer that for you. Right now, you're not in that program. Let me know how it works out for you in 40 years. Okay? Because the point is, if they put a time limit on it, because you could, we are smart enough to figure this out. It may not be 40 years, it could be 39 and a half. But we're smart enough as a people to figure this out if we work together. Okay? Right now, we're not working together.
Yep.
And we can look and see, yeah, there are some billionaires, some, not as many as white folks, but some. Most of them are making money because of white folks. Okay? Being a billionaire and making $1 billion off your own people is rare. Most white people who are billionaires make a lot of their money from different cultures because the buying patterns are amenable to what they're trying to do. Okay, for example, records, all kinds of music, gospel, opera, rap. How much money is made from gospel music versus opera versus rap? And then when you answer that question, how much money is that made coming out of Black people's pockets? Okay. Yeah, you would think that opera really didn't have a chance, but it does because the money's not coming necessarily from Black people. Okay, the gravy is coming from the Black people. Okay, we would have opera, we would have gospel, we probably wouldn't have rap if it wasn't for Black people putting money into. We think we're putting it into the artists' pockets. They get some, yes, but the lion's share not going to us, going to people who don't look like us. And we go through the whole gamut, you know, clothes and all this kind of stuff. And then you wonder why, when you're sitting and you watch your television, which is owned and operated by mostly white people, and you see the commercials over and over and over again, they're just indoctrinating you to, this is acceptable. This is what you want. You should have this. You must have this. Give me your money. And so if we just turn that thinking around, listen, sneakers, I just need a pair of sneakers, really. They don't have to be Jordans. I'm telling you, I've worn Jordans, I've worn Converses, I've worn Keds, and it did not make my game any better. Not one of them. Okay, I still can't dunk. And so you think about that and you say, well, look, well, if I bought into that, and let me give you a good example. If
Mhm.
I bought into that, then I could save a lot of money. I have good sneakers on. I still got my game, but I have more money in my pocket to do other things.
Mhm.
Case in point, the point I want to make is last point. Most people you see who are attending Harvard University may drive a nice car that is provided to them by their parents. Most of the clothes they wear, you could probably buy at Walmart. The shoes they wear, you could probably find what they call that in a Walmart too. Okay, they don't
Kmart. Mhm.
spend their money in a Kmart. Okay, they don't spend their money on Jordans. They don't
Mhm.
do that. They don't buy the high priced pants and sweaters and stuff like that. You know, and you say, well, gee, well, you got the money. You could go and do whatever you want. Why don't you have the bling, the all, nah, that's what you buy. That's
Mhm.
how I get paid. That's how my parents get paid and they give me money because you buy that crap.
Mhm.
You know, well, okay, I could buy crap, but it could buy it from the black guy. Okay, you could do that. The point is that we got to understand how this whole thing works together and work together, and understand that it's not about me. It's about making through this 40 years so I can see what it's going to be like when we are all now financially and economically on the same plane. You see, there's no gap anymore. We have just as many billionaires as you have. Okay.
Mhm.
And so we can start thinking and doing things differently. One of the problems we have with Africa, which is the home countries, and they got everything over there we got over here, is that mentality. You can't fault them. Okay, this is our country. We're doing what we do. We have some people that are super rich and some people who aren't, you know. But the reality is that it's not just about you. You have brothers and sisters. I'm talking to the Africans now. You got brothers and sisters in this country. Yeah, they may be mentally impaired. They're still brothers and sisters, you know. And if you bring us home, we could all work together. And then this where we find China and Europe and America just picking off their prime properties and prime materials and minerals from Africa and doing whatever they want with it, and they're not compensating you for it. That would stop, you say. And the United States would no longer be the world power it thinks it is, because there's a lot more minerals in Africa than there are here, just by the fact that they're larger than we are, got more land than we have. Okay. Every country in the world could be put on Africa, and there still would be room, you see.
Mhm.
So, again, why aren't we the kings and queens of the world? Yeah. In our own little fiefdoms, yeah. When it's all about me, yeah. But when it's about us, there is no other race that can stand against us. None, just by the sheer numbers, you say. But anyway, uh, I digress. But okay, so now we're 40 minutes into this, and I don't want to pick up another topic here, but I think that we next week we'll be talking about more specifically breaking the woman
Mhm.
in this whole process that Mr. Lynch had laid out, and Frederick Douglass is kind of enlightening us about it. Um, we could actually put an additional segment in the show um, that would focus on something, you know, we have the topic of the week, and then we have, you know, some other segment,
Hmm.
like that. So you give that some thought. You know?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Um, Anything else?
I mean, like we really, everybody needs to, start looking inside themselves and seeing where they can make some changes. Not for me, not for my father, not for anybody in particular, for yourself, what I'm saying, for your future. If you look inside yourself and you see where you might be doing more harm to yourself than you're doing good as far as some of the choices you make. We all make choices. We are, good, bad, and different, whatever. But what we do, if we're not realizing that we're sandbagging ourselves, shortchanging ourselves, doing ourselves wrong, you're not going to know unless you search inside yourself and say, you know what, am I doing myself the best way I can? Is this going to help me reach the goals that I want? It ain't about what my dad want. It ain't about what my son want. It ain't what my wife want or my girlfriend want. You really have to actually look inside yourself and decide and look at the things that you do for yourself, for your family, and see if it's actually benefiting yourself and your family. Because if you don't start there, you're already behind in the game. You're already losing the race because you're not going to put the effort into yourself to say, hey, there's some stuff I do that's messed up and only I can fix that. So let me start with me. I mean, we all have to do it. I mean, if I want to be a better person, I have to do it. I have to go inside myself.
You got to ask yourself, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, you can believe in the Darwinism, that evolution happened and that, you evolved into the person you are. And if that's acceptable to you, then, go eat some raw hamburger. But for those of us who, like to have our food cooked, you think about, well, why am I here? I can think, I can move, I can make things happen. So why am I here? Is it all just to entertain myself? Is it all for me to just walk around like a peacock and strut my Rolex and my, Gucci this and Gucci that? Is that why I'm here? Or maybe I could do a little more. Maybe I could, maybe put a couple of dollars aside so my kids don't have to borrow money to buy a house. They'd be able to buy cash money, do what they want to do. They don't have to worry about getting a scholarship. The money's already saved up for them so they can learn and do it. So-and-so wants to be a lawyer. So-and-so wants to be a doctor, but they can't, we can't come up with the money for them. So they had to be a, I don't know, plumber. I don't know. Well, plumber is a good deal, but see, they can't be what they want to be. They had to be what they could afford to be. But if I helped out, if I did, my part in helping out, providing something for them, because most of us, tell you the truth, came up and there wasn't nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
You got here, you're born, and hopefully your parents had enough money to get a cab home from the hospital, or the bus, whichever way it was. But for those who who were born and their parents had a house, their parents had a business or whatever, great. But then what did you do? Did you add value to the business? Did you double the size of the business? Or are you just, taking from the business to have your way? I mean, that's okay, that's stuff you want to do. But if you don't ask yourself along the way, why am I here? You'll never question, what you do. I'm not saying you're here to save the world. I want you to figure it out. Yes.
Listen, and while you were talking, it just came to me. It was like, if I put some money together for my child to buy a house or to go to school, whatever, think about how much less stress they have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how more focused they could be in their books and their learning, in their, in their growing. you know, as a human being, if these stresses that each one of us have dealt with and felt in some way, shape, or form, if our children don't have to deal with that, where am I going to live at, you know, or how am I going to pay for college, or I want to go stay in a dorm. Okay, well, you know, we might not be able to do the dorm thing, but, you know, we live close enough to the school where, hey, we get you a vehicle, you know, and stuff like that. When you start taking the stress out of their life, but you have to make sure that they are doing the work. You know, it can't be, well, I just got it, so here, you know. But they, you know, their stress is those books, you know, getting that education so that they can be a benefit to themselves and society. I know we run along, but let me do this one admin note. Thanks to all our viewers. You know, if you can, if you feel upon yourself to recommend a topic for discussion, please hit us in the comment block, and I'm gonna digress after that.
Okay. Yeah. Right now, maybe our children are stressing over that question of why am I here? You know, what am I going to do with my life? You know, can I get, you know, whatever it is I'm trying to get to, my goals, or whatever they may be. You know, they may be stressing. We might be able to reduce a lot of that stress by having provided certain things. You know, in this world, we all understand money is important. You know, it's not the end all, but it is important. You know, and if you have it, great. If you don't have it, you're trying to get it, and you know, if someone comes along behind you, they're gonna have the same issue. You know, and so one of the reasons why you're here might be to leave something for them
Mhm.
to work with. Oh well, you know, suffering develops character. Really? That's not the only thing that helps develop character. You know that, right? Okay, but you know, I mean, it's whatever you know what works for you. But I'm just saying, as a people, based on what we've been through these last 400 some odd years, we could do better. We really,
Mhm.
we really should have done better.
Mhm.
Now we really need to start thinking about doing better. That's basically what I want to say.
Yep.
And with that, I want to close out. Did you want to say goodbye, or you wait for
Yes.
me to say it? Didn't you?
Well, thanks everybody for viewing, and we appreciate you coming to our show and checking us out. You know, and we want to wish you a happy 2021 and best wishes. Best wishes. Sorry.
Same here, and God bless.